Hey everybody, it's Thursday night, which means it is time for Shop Talk. I am Josh Olive with Haven Comics here in Madison, Alabama. I can guarantee you we are the best comic book store at our address, bar none. We have got a really exciting show tonight that we're just pumped to have this guest coming on the show tonight so we can talk to him about comics, artwork, all the fun stuff that we like to talk about and you guys like to see. So stick around while we play the intro. And if you haven't hit the like button already, shame on you. You should do that. There you are, fresh back from hitting that like button and subscribe and all that stuff because that's really important and it will change your life. In probably a minute, tiny way that you're not even aware of until years later when you didn't do it and you feel very upset with yourself. Speaking of things that I'm upset about, I'd like to introduce you to my co-host, Mr. Alan Breedlove. What's happening, Alan?
I am a very upsetting person, so I cannot blame you for whatever reason you may be upset with me about. But as far as the general stuff is concerned, there's no reason to be upset. We've had a good week so far. Yep. Found out the bug has no school tomorrow because of impending storms.
We didn't blow away last night, but there's still hope for tomorrow.
There's still hope for tomorrow. The YouTube shorts have been doing really well. Some have been hit, some have been missed, but at the same time, stick with us. I'm just going to get better at them. And this morning, I did have a very important question finally answered in my life.
What's that?
I finally know Yoda's last name.
I hesitate to ask, but what is Yoda's last name?
Lehihu.
Wow.
I'll get my laughs every single time.
So, yodelady, yodelady, yodelady. Mm-hmm. That's okay.
Yep.
Yodelady.
I am really excited for tonight. Our guest tonight has the opportunity to get us one step closer to the oldest question in the universe, the first question in the universe. And that question is simple. Doctor Who. That's for the Whovians out there.
I got it, and I appreciate it.
Everybody, meet Mr. Kelly Yates. He is... look at that. Everyone loves you. He is a comic book creator. He's been doing this for a while, and he still is really happy about it somehow. But he also comes to Huntsville for Con Castabris whenever they have that. And he is a regular. He is the most sought after Doctor Who person that they have every year. The first one they book is always Kelly Yates. So that's always awesome. So we're thrilled to have you on the show tonight, man. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, it's so great to be here. Thank you for the introduction. So I'm ready to talk about whatever, Doctor Who, Kickstarters, conventions. Let's just get into it.
We will talk about all of that stuff. Right. But I do have to say, we have something we like to ask folks right out of the gate when we have somebody on who's a creator and all this stuff. Because it's comic books, we're all suckers for these. We all love these. We live for these. And when they make movies, they can't seem to tell any story but these. We would like to know about your... How'd you get started in this? How did you decide, comic books? Those are cool.
Oh gosh. Well, actually, I was just got back from Pensacon down in Pensacola, Florida this weekend.
That was a rocking show, wasn't it?
It really was.
They sold out Saturday and they sold out Sunday, and it was insane. Every report I had from anybody was mind blown.
It really was. It was a really phenomenal show. It's always a great show, but it was phenomenal this year. So we can get into that, but a little bit later about maybe who was there and maybe why some of that was. But my origin story. So 12 years old. I live in North Carolina. I took a road trip with my mom and grandparents one summer. So we started in North Carolina. We drove the southern route out to California, and then we came the northern route back.
Well, that's a heck of a road trip. You're not kidding.
Oh man, I was what, 12 years old, 13. And, I had my boom box in the car and my little tape deck, so
There was no Nintendo Switch at the time. None of that stuff.
Nothing. Atari 2600, but you couldn't take that with you in a car across the country. But so, and part of that is exactly it. It was this boring. I mean, it was a great trip. Great. Don't get me wrong, but I didn't have what kids have now. I didn't have the Walkmans. I didn't have this, but I did have my boombox. But anyway, so we get to Yellowstone National Park and we stay at the lodge out there. And again, I was really into MTV. And when I get there, I'm like, what's the new video? Motley Crue, whatever it is. They didn't have a single TV in the entire lodge. I'm like, oh my gosh, what do I do? What do I do? So I went up I went down to the gift shop, and there were 2 comic books on the shelf in there. I don't even remember what one of them was, but one was Chris Star number, I think 6, that had Nightcrawler on the cover. And I picked them up, and I just started falling in love with comic books. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. And I'll circle back to Pensacola. So Michael Golden was there this weekend, and he was the one who illustrated that cover. And, I've talked to him in passing in general, but and it just hit me. I was like, that's right. He did that cover, and I actually said something to him about it. I didn't want to blame him. I was like, 12 years old, I get into it because I saw that cover. Here I am at 51 now. A lot of that journey was because I saw that cover of yours. So
you've said 2 things so far that I have absolutely loved. First and foremost, North Carolina. My dad was from backwoods North Carolina, and then Chris Star. So I cannot remember how old I was, but I grew up in Huntsville, Alabama. We would go to North Carolina 2-3 times a year, sometimes to visit my grandparents, and we would always stop at the Alabama Tennessee fireworks stand right outside of Chattanooga, the big white one. It used to be like really nice neon and everything. And they had a spinner rack in there. Mm-hmm. And my first comic book was Chris Star number 1.
Oh,
so it's like everything that you're saying right now. I mean, it's just like nostalgia. It's bringing back memories. I love it.
Oh yeah. Well, it's funny because I don't want to jump around my story too much, but I ended up just this past year going back and picking up all 12 issues again, just because I wanted to reread them and everything. Nice. Just because it's been so long. I really enjoyed it still. I think there's something there, and it's actually owned by Marvel still. It's originally, so they wouldn't have to license it out. They just have to hire somebody to do something. But anyway,
just make a pitch, man.
I know. Like I don't have enough to do, but I got back to North Carolina. I found out, hit the 7-Elevens like you were saying, Alan. There was a spinner rack there. Started, going to pick up some books every once in a while. And then found out there's a small comic book store in my downtown here in Greensboro. And my mom took me down there and just started getting into it every year. So, so I've been a long-time fan. I still go to the comic book store every Wednesday to get books. I love it.
So what books are you, and this is a question that I've asked creators before, and I've always been kind of surprised at the answer, because some of them are like, well, I don't have time to read comic books anymore, or I'm only working on my project. What books are you currently reading?
Well, I'm reading, for whatever reason, which I don't know if you see behind me, I have a couple of Star Wars things. Not only do I love Doctor Who, I love Star Wars too. 5 years old, saw it in the theaters for the first time. In fact, I remember when the Star Destroyer was coming over, I was like, my poor dad, he was not into this stuff. I remember looking over him. He was fast asleep right beside me. I think he slept the entire movie, didn't care one thing about it. But so I've always been into Star Wars comic books. And so I'm getting all the stuff. And unfortunately, Marvel's putting out great Star Wars books now, but they're putting out so many books.
It's a lot.
Every week it's like 5 books every week. So I did have a kind of problem with that. You can't see my corner, but I cut a couple of long boxes over here. It's every single Star Wars book since 1977. So like all the complete Marvel run, all the Dark Horse stuff, all the current stuff. So
you got that 35-cent variant of number 1?
I don't have that one. Give me a little bit of a break, but
I was just going to come visit. That's all.
If you have that one, but that was crazy. Even back when I was younger, that even then, when I was in the 80s, that thing was like $200-300 back then. I don't even know what it is now.
A lot.
Yeah, a lot.
It's a lot. Great book though.
Yeah. So Star Wars Saga. I don't. What else am I reading? So Star Wars Saga. I love the new Thor book. I'm enjoying that a lot. I'm picking a lot of Image books here and there. Gosh, I just a little bit of everything. I always have kind of been a Marvel guy, though. You know, I mean, I've enjoyed DC over the years, fine, but I just have always gravitated towards the Marvel characters. And for X-Men, I read X-Men for years, many years. So
you talk about the first comic you ever read. The very first comic I ever read, I brought a brown paper grocery sack of comic books at a yard sale for $1, and in that bunch of books was an X-Men number 133, Wolverine Alone Against the Hellfire Club.
Oh yeah,
that was the first comic book I ever read.
What an impression, right?
Oh, blew my mind.
Right.
The opening scene where Wolverine is like, holding himself up in the ceiling while the Hellfire Club guards walk underneath him. I was like, you can do that? Oh my God. Yeah. And then Chris Claremont's writing was so spectacular. I didn't know who any of those people were. I didn't know what was going on. It was in the middle of a story arc, but I didn't have to. It was perfect because back in the day, comics were written where no matter if that was the first one you picked up, the first time anybody said anything to anybody, they threw their name in there, right? Yeah. Well done, Cyclops. Good job, Storm. They don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate because it made it easy for anybody picking it up to read it.
Yeah, the structure's changed. It's just changed. Everything's geared towards trade paperbacks, 6-issue story arcs for the most part. So
to the detriment of the industry, I think, because some stories are not 6-issue stories. It's like trying to make all novels the same length. It doesn't work. Some books are long books, some books are short books.
Yeah, exactly. And I used to love like those one shots. Sometimes I think you've got one right beside you in your GI Joe 21. That yep. single issue. You know, you didn't need to know anything else, and you didn't need any words. It just told the story. Boom, here's your story, right?
And it left you hanging with that cliffhanger at the end, where if you were paying attention, you could see they both had the same symbol on their arm, and yeah, that was mind blowing. Right. You're like,
okay, so. In the first, what are we? 13 minutes, he has mentioned North Carolina. He's mentioned Crystar. He has mentioned a boombox. He's mentioned Motley Crue. He has now mentioned
Star Wars. G.I. Joe.
And he knew. No, it's not the fact that he mentioned G.I. Joe. It's the fact that he knew that was issue 21.
With that glare on it, that's pretty good.
You might want to start working your hand out because the next con that you come to, you are signing so much crap of mine right now.
Yeah, you might have a new best friend, Kelly. I'm sorry.
Well, so with this love of comic books, I worked in a comic book store for about 6-7 years, and so I just learned all the little things along the way.
Hey, what's happening, Chris? Good to see you out in Texas. And Blue Hellion coming on from Nebraska. Good to see you guys.
Thanks for joining.
So you worked at a comic book shop when you were younger, right?
College years, yeah.
Okay. Guilty. I did the same.
Yeah.
And then I opened one. That was not the smartest move of my life, but
I entertained it actually many years ago. So I even entertained, I'll start with my own convention because I just love comic books. But now on the other side, I was like, oh my gosh, I respect all the people that run a comic book store, a good comic book store. They know what they're doing. They're not trying to rip off their customers, and they're fair at their prices, and they're fair trying to help people. And conventions, oh my goodness. How do you run a convention? I couldn't do it. I'm not built for that. I'm just not built that way.
Having seen what goes into the Huntsville Comic and Pop Culture Expo, which is a relatively new show. This is year 8, I think. It's enormous. It's the entire South Hall. It's grown on a similar path to Pensacon.
Yeah.
And we've got William Shatner coming this year, for crying out loud. But watching what Jeremy does to put that show on, to run it, to do all the behind the scenes stuff, and then how much work he does the week of the convention. Good gravy. That's a lot.
It's a dedication. It is a
It
dedication. You've got to love it. I mean, you really have to have a passion and love for it. Because if it's just about money, you're going to sink. You're going to tank. Somewhere along the way, you're going to upset somebody about money or something. But if you're truly passionate and love it, and you care about your guests and your fans and the people, it's going to be successful.
I think that you just described the same thing for a comic book store too. You have to love it because comic shop is a tough mistress. You better love it, and you better love your community and the folks who come there.
Yeah. Well, it's important because, I mean, think about it. So you've had your shop for 22 years now, right?
Yep.
So think about, you've been through a major economic recession. You survived that, right? And then COVID. I mean, that just kind of locked up thing, just the dynamics of everything. To survive those two things that says something.
And off the heels of COVID, the distributor wars from the 90s kicking back in. That's a nightmare.
Yeah, that's a whole nother thing.
Three times as much work for no more money. It's not fun.
And the shop has to survive me every Friday evening. So that right there is devastating onto itself.
I told you to stop eating at Taco Bell before you come.
Well, I can't help it. So speaking of the things that, like love and enjoying being passionate about, how did you get started in the comic book industry as an artist?
Well, I didn't know you can make a living as an artist. First thing, I mean, like, what? You can do this? And I was never encouraged by my parents in that way. Even for many years later, my parents were like, when are you going to get a real job and quit this comic book stuff? It's like, I love it. It's in my blood, and it's infused in me. But I was going to college. I was going to the University of North Carolina at Greensboro. And I was studying exercise sports science, like motor mechanics and things like that. And I thought, oh, it's pretty interesting. I enjoyed it okay, but it just wasn't gelling with me. I struggled through it, and I was working in the comic book shop and everything. And lie to you not, I doodled every once in a while. Like, I think last time I had an art class was like in 9th grade, somewhere along that line. So, but I had this passion for comic books, and I started doodling in the comic book store. Nobody was in, like a little sketch pad. I mean, horrible stuff, but you got to start somewhere, right? So I started doing that, and I started doodling, and I would say this is a genesis, but this guy leans over during this hour-and-a-half long lecture. He goes, "Man, you ought to be an artist or something, And I was like, I wonder if I should. I don't know. So I started really looking around, and I was pretty much self-taught. I ended up leaving the university and going to a 2-year school, a technical school. It's called Guilford Technical Community College. And I will sing their praises, because at that time, the mid-90s, they had 30 Macintoshes in their school. Nobody in the state of North Carolina had more than 3 at any university or school. So this school really specialized in it. So I went to kind of get a 2-year degree in commercial art and computer graphics, stayed up late at night, drawing, sketching, studying other artists. And, just kind of started moving that way, found some local people in my area that were into comic books, and like, well, how do you pencil things? Or, like actual comic book production, like, oh, you draw it on 11 by 17 paper, you draw it 2 times up. Oh, you ink it with these brushes or pens. So it was really just connecting with people locally who knew more than me through the comic book store. Like, oh, there's this artist, like, oh, Randy Green. And Randy Green, I don't know if you know him. He worked on Cable, White Queen, X-Force, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I mean, Randy and I have been friends for many, many years, but I learned so much from him. Just like, oh, that's how you do this effect, or that's how you do that. So, and then I started doing conventions, find out about like, oh, Heroes Con. I don't know if y'all have heard of Heroes Con in Charlotte, North Carolina, but probably one of the most, the biggest pure comic book show in the United States. Just, no actors. That's just how that's their focus, is just.
I still love Heroes Con for that. It's like a pure comic show.
Pure comic show. They will never, I wouldn't say never, most likely never invite an actor or anything. And that's just that's their niche. That's what they want. So, that's what I love about it. But just start doing shows like that, meeting more people, networking, starting to work on portfolios. So it's just kind of this slow build every year. So it's, it's that old saying, you work 10 years, become an overnight success. I think it's more like I work 30 years, become some type of success. So.
Yeah, it's a tough road. It absolutely is. And I've never, no two paths to it are the same. We had Brian Haberlin on here a few weeks ago, and he was talking about he got a job offer from Marvel to draw, and he turned them down because they were paying $35 a page. And he's like, I can't live on that in New York.
No.
I can't do that. So he turned them down.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate the comic book industry that has inspired so many other industries and it has brought so much to the movie industry just over the past 10 years minimum, that just the creators do not get paid fair. It's just incredible. And it's the longevity too. It's, you don't see people working on books for 3 years anymore in general. I mean, in general, like Marvel, it's like, here's 6, you get 6 issues or whatever, and editor leaves, you got to start over again. It's tough. It's tough. And here's my dirty little secret. So everybody's like, oh, you do comic books and this stuff like that. That's cool. That's great. I said, yeah, but what you don't know is the comic books is actually my paying part-time hobby job that I do at night when everybody goes to bed. That's it. So my full-time job during the day is I work at Wrangler Jeans. So I'm a senior graphic designer there, and I design like point of sale, presentations, everything in between, because I like to pay my mortgage. I like to take a vacation. I like to have money so I can support my family. Oh, those benefit things. How many comic book creators do you meet that get benefits? Mm-hmm. And so that's my little secret. I work a full-time job, and then I get everybody to bed by 9 or 10 o'clock, and I go sit at my computer or my art table, and I just create away. I just love it. I just have never been able to make the jump to full-time, at least at this point.
It's risky and it's challenging, but to do what you're doing takes a whole level of dedication. You're doing it because you love it. There's no other reason that you would put those kind of hours in and do that if you didn't love it.
Yeah, I love it. I have to, right? I feel like I have to love it. So, I mean, you just get that book, and when you put a book in your hands and you get to the end of it and you're just amazed by like, a human created this. This is a story that's personal, but it somehow on that human level, it connects with you. And it, just like our Chris Starr, our X-Men books, whatever it is. I don't know if Alan's first book, but what those things that connect us that have brought us in. Obviously, it's very moving and powerful. It's the human story.
It absolutely is, and it's a different medium for storytelling. And I try to tell people they come in all the time, and a lot of times there will be multiple people in a group, and one of them is the one that wanted to come to the comic book store. The other ones are just dragged along for the ride, right? Yeah. So you start to say things like, well, what kind of movies do you like? It's all about storytelling. What kind of books do you like? This is just another medium for telling stories. Mm-hmm. So you tell me something you like, I'll find a comic book that you will love. Because they think it's all just capes and tights, and it's not. There's so much more going on. If I can point them to AWA books, I can point them to Mad Cave Studios books. Mm-hmm. I can point them to all kinds of books where it will blow their mind. They don't know what they're missing. And then once those people, once they get their hooks into a comic and they really dig it, they want more.
Yeah.
My wife accuses me of being a drug dealer.
Yeah. It's just a different type of drug,
Totally legal.
Totally legal. So, well, you're right. So, I mean, when I go into the shop anymore, there's just so much content. And I mean that in a good way. It's like, and how do you consume it all? Or all the horror books, all the sci-fi books. There's so many different genres now. It's amazing. And somebody who runs a shop who knows what they're doing can point you to the right thing. So,
it's one of our favorite things to do. Is to get somebody a comic book in their hand, and I'll do it a lot. I'll say, look, if you don't like it, bring it back. I'll give you your money back. Mm-hmm. You read this, and I'm willing to bet you that you're going to like it.
Yeah.
And if you don't, you just bring it back. I will give you your money back, no questions asked. Mm-hmm. I think I've had to refund somebody like twice in 22 years.
But how many times have you done that and they haven't asked for a refund and they've come back to the store?
Oh, dozens. Yeah, dozens and dozens.
Please, I'm one of those that I don't even know what's going to be in my box from week to week. And it's not because I don't know what's on my pull list. It's I don't know what Josh is going to throw in my box next.
Yeah.
True statement.
I have actually started doing that to another subscriber at Haven who's actually watching right now. who had literally, this person right here will end up with random comics in their box. In fact, Nick, I signed you up for one a couple of weeks ago. So,
and the book's called Chicken Butt, huh? No,
really popular book. You'd be amazed.
Yeah. So you kind of mentioned there, and I think I know the answer to the question, but I'm going to ask anyway for somebody who's not paying attention to what's going on behind you. What is your favorite genre to draw?
Sci-fi. I'm pure sci-fi guy. I mean, yeah, I like superheroes, but yeah, anytime. I don't think there's enough sci-fi comic books out there, actually.
Now, and this question is going to be a little, I don't know, it could be a little strange. It might be very insignificant. You'd be like, that's not that big a deal, but I'm going to ask anyway. So with your work on Doctor Who, you literally are having to deal with some of the most iconic characters in sci-fi history. And you've literally had to draw two of the most iconic doctors pretty much in our lifetime with David Tennant and Matt Smith, 10 and 11. Mm-hmm. Do you feel that having those, like having a real person as a reference, does that hurt you or does that help you as an artist?
So I love it. For me, it's trying to find that line with photorealistic. Like, I don't try to find that line being photorealistic, but I do try to find that comic booky look and feel to it. Like, it still looks, it's finding the right lines to pull out in somebody's face. Like Matt Smith, he's got the hair that goes over. I mean, it's very distinct, but there's actually this little crease in the middle of his forehead that you don't see. But when it's not there, it looks a little odd. But when you put it in there, it's like, oh, that's Matt Smith. It's the small little thing, is knowing what lines to actually pull out of their features. So I try to find a balance of being not hyper realistic, but kind of close enough. You're like, man, and using colors. I love using very strong colors to help fill in the gaps in the line art with that. So that's kind of, so yeah, I think it's pretty cool. But I do use reference. I mean, I'll tell you this, I'll throw this. So, and we can go back and we can circle back to like how I got into Doctor Who. But so my first convention in the UK, I think it was about 5 years ago, and I was at Thought Bubble in Leeds, and this gentleman comes up to me and starts talking, and he goes, "Oh, I love your Doctor Who stuff." He was flipping through my book with my prints and everything, and we were talking, and we end up having a friend in common, actually. And he goes, "Well, what are you doing?" I was like, "Well, my wife and I, we're here for like the next 10 days. We're going to go over to Cardiff and do the Doctor Who experience and all that. We're going to do the whole touristy thing, Stonehenge and everything in between." So he goes, "Oh, so you're going over to Cardiff?" I was like, yeah. He goes, "Well, would you like to go tour the set of the TARDIS?" I'm like, yeah. So he was a producer on the show during the 50th anniversary, and for 1 or 2 years, I think, with Matt Smith. Yeah.
Oh man.
So he called over and coordinated it, and my wife and I got to run around the set of the TARDIS, the 11th and 12th Doctors, the clean gray stream. Got to run around for like 2 hours and take pictures. And I actually used that reference in some of on my covers and
brilliant.
So
brilliant. Now, as far as, and I mean, this could just be like a simple no, but as far as say like the TV show Doctor Who, do they have any input with what y'all do story-wise or art-wise on the comic?
110%. There's a BBC group that proofs all that. So I've never written any Doctor Who stuff. So that's just like that. They work with an editor, and they've got to work with the BBC Doctor Who group on what stories they can tell. So, for some of the older stuff, there's a lot more give in there because, like the Tom Baker, if you did a Fourth Doctor stuff, there's a lot of room because, he's already done his arc. It's been years since it. So there's a lot of stories you can tell. When they're doing the Jodie Whittaker stuff, the 13th Doctor, they have to be a little bit more careful because they might not know where the third season's going or whatever. So they have to kind of navigate that a little more. So there is that, but they do have, and I'm the same way with the BBC. Like if they see something they don't like, then yeah, they can have us alter it. And that's why I work a lot more digital now, because just there are changes to stuff. You don't want to get all the way to the end. You've already inked something traditional with pens and brushes, and all of a sudden like, well, we got to change that face, whatever. And you're like, oh my gosh, so you don't want to kind of be.
I hate you.
So have you ever tried to draw 11 without his bow tie just to see how that would go over?
I don't think I have, but I'm open to it.
I bet he does commissions.
Yeah, just give it a shot, see who it upsets. Why not?
Yeah. I don't know. Put in his hair, right? Maybe on the side of his head or something. Pull his hair back. I don't know.
Yeah, a baseball cap instead of a fez. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if you know Andy Price, but he was the artist on the My Little Pony comic for a long time. He's a local guy from here. He hit the big time with My Little Pony and moved to Atlanta.
Yeah.
But that being a licensed property, he had the same thing that you're describing, except Hasbro would say, "Oh, the ponies would never do this." And he's like, "Here's the cartoon where they did exactly this," and they're like, "No, you can't do it." He's like, so yeah, he said there were instances where they just left hand didn't know what the right hand was doing, and the right hand had no idea what it was doing either. So it was just a mess.
Well, and just think about though, in context of that though, you're exactly right. So let's say somebody stepped into to edit X-Men books. There is 60 years of X-Men books now, and you don't remember that Nightcrawler did this in 1983, or you don't remember that Rogue did this in 1992. I mean, within certain parameters, I mean, that's got to be tough, and find that balance. I mean, it really is kind of, I guess, the writer's responsibility to some degree to be knowledgeable, but still, yeah, I mean, an editor like the My Little Pony, but still the fact that he had the proof, that's just corporate America. Like, do it anyway, right?
Exactly. Because I said so. Right.
That's right.
Oh, okay. Okay. So you mentioned conventions earlier, and what was the first convention you ever went to? Was it Heroes Con? Because if so, that's a heck of an introduction to a comic convention.
Well, I don't remember if Heroes was my very first one. I might have done like one or two small little hotel ones around my local city. I can't remember, but I do remember specifically going to Heroes the first time, like going to Charlotte. Oh, you're going to Charlotte to a comic book show. That was an hour and a half away, but it wasn't the convention center. It was at I think the Holiday Inn, like downstairs in the Holiday Inn. But still, even at that time, that was a big show, even for that time. So now, I mean, I think Heroes just celebrated 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
What an impressive run, right? Wow.
Oh, we got a good question for you here. What Doctor Who characters are your personal favorites to draw?
Ooh, let's see. Well, I'll tell you who my least favorite is. So let's start with there. Least favorite will always be Daleks. Oh my gosh, they're. I mean, they're kind of boring and straight lines and all that. So I mean, they look cool. Don't get me wrong, but to draw them, it's like, oh my gosh. But I really liked drawing Matt Smith. In fact, I think he has a really striking. I mean, David Tennant's great, but something about Matt, just that hair of Matt Smith, just that floppy hair goes over, and people say he doesn't have eyebrows. He actually does. They just kind of start more like halfway where normal people's do. They're there. They're just faint and light, start a little bit further along than others. So.
I always like your David Tennant. He always looks mischievous. He's got that kind of like look. Yeah. I don't know how you capture that, but you do it to a T, and it's fantastic.
Practice.
See, and you talk about Matt Smith's hair. One of the things that I don't know, maybe it's because I don't have hair or anything. I don't know. Maybe that's what draws me to it. But David Tennant literally has the real life human version of anime hair.
That's exactly what it is.
Yes.
I mean, it's his hair. It's like the perfect anime character in every single episode of Doctor Who.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. You're exactly right. Nice little, just the right amount of spike, just the right. Yeah.
If only his eyes were a little bit bigger.
We can do that in Photoshop.
There you go.
So I know that I was never like this big diehard Doctor Who fan or anything. Mm-hmm. What got me started was I saw a commercial for Torchwood, Children of Earth, when they did the miniseries. I started watching it. Well, I really enjoyed it, but during that, there was a commercial for Doctor Who, Planet of the Dead.
Oh, okay.
And I had never watched Doctor Who before, and I love horror. I mean, zombies. I'm one of those weird ones. I want the zombie apocalypse to happen. So I'm thinking I'm going to watch this Doctor Who, and it's going to be a planet full of zombies. And oh, was I so wrong on every single level. But I ended up falling in love with David Tennant's character, the way he portrayed the Doctor. So that's kind of how I got started on Doctor Who. So to kind of circle back to something that you'd said earlier, how did you get started on Doctor Who?
Well, I'm a longtime Whovian actually. So like I watched Tom Baker. I love David Tennant, Matt Smith, loved his zaniness. I love those guys. I think they're fantastic. But I will always say Tom Baker's my favorite Doctor, just because that's who I grew up with, late 70s, early 80s. I was flipping around my 3 channels we had back then. Actually, it wasn't a flipper. It was more like you turn the knob to the TV channels. But I remember flipping around. It was like the news is on, Andy Griffith, another news, and I got to PBS, and there was like this giant robot walking over this village. I'm like, well, hello, what is this? And that was actually Tom Baker's first series, Robot, which I didn't know at the time. And I just started watching it like every Saturday as they would come on. And that was the crazy thing about it back in that time period. No internet, I didn't know such a thing as Doctor Who magazine existed. There were no Doctor Who comics at that time in our area. I mean, it's like, so there was no idea. So when they got to, and they aired some of it out of order. So I watched it for a couple years, and they get to the regeneration scene, and he regenerates into Peter Davison. I'm like, what is this? Like, it completely shocked me. I was like, he's another guy? Like, what the, it's just, there's no way to fact check it. There's none of your friends that you knew of were watching it. Although they were watching it, but nobody was cool enough to say that they were watching Doctor Who. One until years later, I found out other people were actually watching it, people that I grew up with, but nobody talked because it wasn't cool.
I blame you for the visual that popped into my head just a second ago, because you said the 3 channels and the things you had on. And now all I picture is a giant robot walking over to the tune of Andy Griffith with the whistling. And it just seems, it's really funny in my head.
Somebody can mash it up. I'm sure we got the technical skills. Somebody can do it, right?
I bet Nick could do it.
No, Nick could do it. But the entire time he's talking about the 3 channels and what's on them, what's going through my mind is, and you're praying to God it's not a State of the Union address that night.
Oh, yeah, that ruined everything.
Because then that takes over PBS too. All your channels.
We had nothing.
We're all pretty close in age, so we all remember what it was like to be the remote control. Your parents change the channel. Oh, okay, you got to get up and go do it.
Oh my God, I was just talking about this weekend, but yeah, literally, I was the remote control. My dad would go change the channel.
Yeah. Yeah, we were the remote control. It was easy on the parents.
Yeah. And we'll circle back to this question, characters like to cross Doctor Who with. Okay, that's cool. All right, I'll just jump in there and I'll circle back to some of my Doctor Who origins, but I don't, they already did the Star Trek Doctor Who. That was like fantastic, right? I mean, I love that concept and idea and everything. What would be a fun Doctor Who mashup? I mean, it's easy to say Doctor Who Star Wars. Yeah, that'd be fun. That'd be cool. What storyline? I don't know. I'm sure you could do something cool. 10th Doctor, Luke Skywalker,
See, I like and I thought it was a funny meme, and it was actually a meme with my 12-year-old behind me correcting me. And
I appreciate her doing that, because I was going to have to.
I believe it was David Tennant was who was actually in it, but it was basically like a phone call or a text message group between Batman, Superman, and Superman was talking about a doctor that was there when he was younger. And then he talks about, I think the doctor talks about a fixed point in space and time. And then David Tennant is like, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. He's talking about Krypton. And I know I'm just kind of butchering it, but I really thought that would actually make something, that would be a cool crossover, kind of a Doctor Who and Krypton crossover. It doesn't have to be Superman.
Sure.
So I always thought that would be kind of cool.
That is cool. I like it. Well, that's the great thing about Doctor Who. You can tell a horror story. You can tell a science fiction story. You can tell a history story. I mean, that's the great thing about it. It's so many genres you can do with it. It's framed around that. So, and that's one thing I always say is like the interesting thing about Doctor Who is if you go back and watch like the Unearthly Child, the very first episode, it's essentially the same show as the Power of the Doctor. All those episodes in between, Unearthly Child and Power of the Doctor, it's the same thing. It's the same premise. The only thing that changes is the desktop theme.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. It's, you know, I mean, it's been the ideas. It's not like a major shift. It's just the natural characters coming on is the natural reboot. So these new Doctors, it just creates its own natural reboot. So I think that's why it's just kind of has the longevity that it has.
That
and
sounds
now we're
right.
about to get David Tennant back, so I'm all excited about that.
Yes. Very, very interesting. Very interesting. For those who don't know, but yes, it's I
kind of fell off. Nothing against Jodie Whittaker. It just didn't feel the same anymore. There were a couple episodes that I really enjoyed. I think part of the problem was I loved when Russell T Davies and Stephen Moffat were writing. I loved the stories that they were telling. And when they were no longer writing some of those stories, it just didn't feel the same to me anymore.
Yeah, I can see that. I totally get that. Well, I have no inside scoop on the new Doctor Who stuff, but
he's grinning, he's lying, you know it.
No, this is purely me. This is purely me. I know zero story. I know zero story stuff. I'm not convinced this Doctor is a good guy.
The next David Tennant coming back?
I'm not sure he's a good guy.
I think it would be fun to see him play an evil Doctor.
Because there's the series The Valeyard where it's happened between the 11th and 12th generations when it was supposed to happen. It's like he tried to come back and take some of the Doctor's lives to prolong his own life. So it's like the Doctor goes bad is essentially what it is. And they really didn't do it once they got into like the Matt Smith. I thought they were going to get a little darker with Peter Capaldi as like that darker Doctor and everything, which they maybe kind of hinted at it a little bit, but who knows? So 3 specials, this might be the goofy, floppy Doctor. I don't know, but I just kind of like, if you're going to do a dark Doctor, this might be a good, because David Tennant, we've seen him. He can pull off dark. He can pull off dark character.
He did. Was it Whitechurch? Was that the name of the
Broadchurch?
Yes. David Tennant can definitely portray darkness if he wants to. I mean, he can definitely get it. I mean, he's a very gifted actor, and I wish that he had more roles over here than what he's actually had.
Yeah.
I mean, he would be a fun one to watch, but like you said, with the 3 specials, it's almost like, will we get at least a reference to the Master? Will we get some, something with Captain Jack? Will we get? There's got to be a Rose reference in there somehow, some way. Even though we know how the Masters and Jack's stories end up, do we still get some type of reference? Do they try to bring them back somehow?
I don't know. I mean, we got Catherine Tate coming back, so I mean that plays into it. Yeah, honestly, I don't. Is it an alternate universe thing? Is it I have no idea, but.
Now I'm picturing him as Sam the Eagle, and I'm kind of loving it.
Yeah. I could see that. I could get behind that. Totally.
I have totally off the rails here, but I've got something that I think would be spectacular, and I think you're the artist to do it. It's a guaranteed success because it has this name attached to it. Well, 2 phenomenal names attached to it. But a comic book adaptation of Good Omens by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman. Who better to draw it? You've already got all the experience in the world drawing David Tennant.
Yeah, that would be cool, wouldn't it? Oh, I love that series. It was so
and
good.
let's be honest. That would be a fun book to draw.
Absolutely.
It's not sci-fi, but it's a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun. If Neil Gaiman, right? Because Neil Gaiman adapted it, right? No, Neil Gaiman.
Well, Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett wrote the book.
Wrote the book together. I've never read the book, so honestly.
You absolutely should. It's fantastic.
It's hard enough for me to get through a comic book without falling asleep. So an actual.
Fair enough.
I'm gonna be point blank honest. I don't read, not because I don't want to. It's just a time thing. But if they would love me to illustrate it, I'm sure we could work something out.
So you ought to reach out to Neil Gaiman and say, "Hey, pal, I got an idea."
Got an
And
idea.
Neil will be like, how to turn the same property into money in a third way? Awesome.
Exactly.
So this is a really good question for somebody who's never read Doctor Who before. How would you sum up Doctor Who to kind of get somebody involved in it? Because, they make a comment. Nick makes a comment here about the first 2 seasons have completely disappeared. But you really don't have to watch the first 2 seasons. You could kind of jump in at any Doctor.
Are we talking about old Who or new Who? Like in the sense of, we're talking about the original stuff with William Hartnell and Patrick
More
Troughton?
than likely.
Yeah. Well, those are gone. I mean, I know there's a lot of video track or audio tracks to those. I'm not saying there won't be some type of AI generated Doctor Who show in 5 or 10 years now. I don't know. And those things show up all the time. But I think the great thing is you can really find a lot of references online for story. So I think that there's some people complain. So let me start over. So people who have only known New Who have a very hard time New Who, NU Who. So have a hard time going back and watching old classic Who. It's just the graphics, they have a hard time with it and everything. So
the special effects were pretty awful too. I mean,
yeah. Green bubble monsters, we get it. We know clams, but I will say this: that like one of my favorites is Genesis of the Daleks. I think that's a phenomenal 4th Doctor story. Introduced to Davros for the first time. I think there's so much, but I think there's a lot of classic episodes, storylines that if they were actually done as a new Doctor, they would be phenomenal. It's just the graphics that we get hung up on, and that's just not that much we can do about that, unfortunately. But there's some great acting. There's some great stories.
So how did you get your first comic gig as an artist? How did that come about, and how did that translate to Doctor Who?
First, I don't remember particularly what my actually first gig was. I think I got some trading cards, a pin up here and there, just to kind of get me going. Went to a lot of conventions for portfolio reviews. And kind of one of the things that I was struggling with. So this was like the early 2000s. I wasn't breaking in as much as I wanted to. I just get these little things here and there. Like I get a backup story and secret files, like a Chase or a Green Arrow. And these are like great opportunities to get in, but I wasn't getting the bigger work like I really wanted. And so that's actually why I created my creator own book called Amber Atoms. And that is, I wrote and illustrated that, and it came out through Image Comics. So that was a great back, 2008. It couldn't have come out at a worse time though, because of the recession. I mean, even Spider-Man was only selling 250,000 copies in 2008, 2009 with the recession hitting. So it couldn't have come out at the worst time, but to kind of dovetail it. So I was working on my creator own book, and then about that time, Doctor Who was starting to come out. It was coming out with the new show in 2005. And my art career was kind of starting to come together a little bit. Well, IDW had acquired the rights to Doctor Who, the comic book. And they were I think they put out their first 12 issues or something like that. I was out at San Diego Comic-Con, and a friend of mine was out there, and he was working, Robert Atkins, he was working on G.I. Joe for IDW at the time. Yeah. Robert and I are like old studio mates. We kind of, when he used to live in Greensboro, we all kind of had a group together. But so he was doing G.I. Joe, and I was like, Robert, man, I'm a huge Doctor Who fan. I said, would you take me over to the editor and introduce me? Would you do that? He goes, yeah, man, come on. But also to back that up, Robert was on the floor outside of a column at San Diego Comic-Con drawing a G.I. Joe cover on the floor. There's a Snake Eyes cover. He was drawing right there. He's that talented. He's that passionate. He loves his G.I. Joe like I love my Doctor Who and Star Wars. Like that's his thing. But
I'm just going to take a note here. Could you give me his contact information? Because I would like to bring him on this show too.
Oh, he's great. Yeah, he's a teacher at SCAD right now too. He would be great to have on the show. Absolutely. Yes.
I'm a bit of a fan.
Yes. You would love to talk to Robert. You would absolutely love. I will certainly do that. But anyway, so Robert takes me over and introduced me to the editor. The editor looks through my book and everything. He's like, Kelly, I like your stuff, but we're booked up for the next year. There's nothing we can do. It's going to be years. Like, I don't care. I said, I'm a huge Doctor Who fan. I said, I'll wait a year. I just want a pin up, a fill in, a cover, something. I just want to work on Doctor Who. I love it. He goes, okay, it's going to be a year. I'll wait. No problem. A month after San Diego Comic-Con, I get an email that says, knock, knock, opportunity. And an artist was not able to fulfill on a project, and I was able to step in and work on that project, Doctor Who Forgotten #4. And that's kind of what got me into Doctor Who. And here I am.
Man, that's awesome.
Yeah. It was about 2000, 2008, 2009, 2008. Yeah. Yeah. So.
And how long were you the artist on the Doctor Who book? Because it seemed like forever.
I'm sorry?
How long were you the artist on Doctor Who? How long have you been doing Doctor Who?
Well, again, I had to do it in between my full-time job. That was the trick. So I couldn't even tell you how many I've done. I've done a lot more covers than I've done books. Honestly, and that's the kind of the real estate I like to play in, the cover. And that's where, I kind of have fun telling. But I think I've probably drawn about a dozen or so books over the course of, some one-shots, a mini-series, an annual, some fill-in issues, just things along the years and everything. So it was never a big consistent run just because of deadlines and things like that. But I just love doing the covers too. So I was working with IDW for years. The license then went over to Titan around the 50th anniversary. So Titan Entertainment has actually had it for 10 years now, which is like, wow,
a while.
Where's the time gone? But I had gone to San Diego Comic-Con. I was literally walking around the show at San Diego, and I get a message from somebody. It's like, what are you going to do now that IDW doesn't have the license? I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. And I'd heard it through somebody else before I even heard about it at the show, just how those things go. And so the rumor was like Boom was going to get it. Dark Horse was going to get it. Even Marvel might get Doctor Who. And the stronger rumor was Titan. So made my way over to Titan over the course of the week at San Diego, and ended up meeting somebody called Andrew Sumner, which I didn't know him at the time. I was like, hey, are you looking for portfolios? I'm like a big Doctor Who guy. And he looked at me and goes, mate, this is great, mate. He just, stay in touch, mate. Stay in touch. So he knew something I didn't know. And they about a month or two later, they announced that the Titan had acquired the licensing rights to Doctor Who.
The first comic book that Haven Comics was ever mentioned in at all was they had established the Gallifreyan High Council, which was all a bunch of retailers and things that were supporting the book at a certain level or something. This is just through the normal publisher. Mm-hmm. And we had all the folks for Con K that so we were ordering those books, Doctor Who books for those. So we qualified at higher levels than I think most stores of our size normally would.
Right.
So we were listed in that book, in the list. So if you open that book up, there we are. There's our name right up next to Forbidden Planet and Midtown Comics and all these. And it's like, this is insane.
Those are some top tier shops too. That's awesome. That's cool.
It was great. So yeah. What we did, this was right around one of the times of the Huntsville Comic and Pop Culture Expo. So all the folks who worked at Haven at the time and were at the show, we all signed it and had it sent off to CBCS to get graded. So there's that comic with our names on it. And then a friend of ours built a custom TARDIS frame for it. So we've got that up at the shop now.
Oh, so it's the slab inside of a TARDIS frame.
Correct.
Cool.
Yeah, it's really, really great. But it's been a fun. The Doctor Who comic has had an interesting, kind of like the show. It's had an interesting evolution, right, over the years.
Yeah.
And it changes, like the show has changed. But it's always been fun, and we really enjoy it. And you, for us, I think Doctor Who comic book, you're the name I associate with it. No matter who's publishing it, no matter where it is. First thing I think of when I think Doctor Who comic is Kelly Yates.
Isn't that crazy? I think that's crazy. Like I'm so happy they let me play in their little British sandbox, because I think sometimes people may be a little disappointed when they meet me because they maybe think I'm British or whatever. And it's kind of, oh, you're American. Well, how do you get to work on Doctor Who? It's like, well, let me tell you. So
How much time do you
Ding
have?
dong giggity, y'all. Let's go.
That's fantastic. So you mentioned Amber Adams a little bit ago.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about that a little bit. I'm going to pop a picture up on the screen so folks can see what we're talking about here. But this is your creator-owned project, right?
Yes. Now that's the cover by French artist Olivier Vatine. That's the variant version.
Right.
That's a whole nother story because that's one of my favorite artists, and I could talk about that in a little bit. But so yes, Amber Adams, originally published by Image Comics in 2008, 2009. Again, like I said, it couldn't have come out at a worse time with the recession. And then I actually got busy with Doctor Who and other projects along the way, but I always wanted to collect it into a trade paperback because it was my early works, but it was my first story that I actually wrote myself. So I always wanted to have it to sell at shows, and it never was collected in trade paperback. So I got the rights back from Image Comics, and I decided to kind of pull it together, and I wrote a brand new 7-page story. That I did wrote, illustrated, colored the whole thing, just as something for fans, both old and new. So if somebody bought the original series, there's something new and different in there. I got a great pinup section. And so all in total, it's going to be a 112-page trade paperback that's now currently running on Kickstarter. I want to fund it at $5,000, and that's to cover printing and shipping and all those things. And I got funded in like 4 days. Thank you, everybody. It is absolutely amazing the support I've gotten. And that's just from being friends with people over the years, being nice, just being a human. And, I was really just amazed by the support that came out because, my first Kickstarter ever, again, funded in 4 days. I'm just been amazed.
That might be a record for Kickstarter for a first Kickstarter.
Unless
that might be, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure if Adam Hughes did his first Kickstarter, he probably raised $250,000. But for me and my level, I was pretty impressed. So I was very, very happy with it. So, but it's going to be collected. And then when we use the funds for is I got a second creator-owned book called Monster, like Mother, and about 2/3 of the way through with that. So that'll take me probably about another year and a half to kind of get under my belt and done. And then Amber Adams, the next chapter is already written. I just have to illustrate it. So it takes time, but all the money I get for this will go to fund future projects. So, because I want a bookshelf with my artwork out there. Yes, that's the first page from the new story.
There's so much going on here, right? You look at what's happening. There's this flower, all these different types of hands reaching for it. She snags it. She's running. Everybody's grasping at her. You talked about your use of color and your color palette earlier, and that's one of the things that just leaps off the page is this bright color. And there's this optimism that you associate with that bright yellow, particularly. This is just pure fun. I get to see the action that's going on here, that little bit of squash and stretch, just a smidge, the animation style thing that's going on here with the way that she's running across this. Tell people about who she is and what this character is like, so people know what they're going to be buying, because people are going to be buying it.
Right. Well, like I said, this is from the new story. I really wanted to show this new story in there so that I could say, like, look how much I've improved as an artist and a writer. You know what I mean? You always want to kind of move forward. So I wanted to showcase that. But basically, Amber, if you like sci-fi stories and girls with jetpacks, this might be for you. Think female Flash Gordon if you want to as well. But basically, Flash, actually, random story.
Every one of us.
I was at Pensacon this weekend, and I go to this dinner, and Sam Jones sat right beside him for dinner, and Sam's great.
Okay, watch this. As soon as we get home, I'm going to get out the DVD of what they're talking about and make you watch it. She's like, "No, Daddy, please, I don't want it.
Don't make me watch sci-fi. It's done."
It's got one of the best soundtracks of all time, that movie.
It really does. It really does. It really, really does. But yeah, so basically her family history, she finds out that her family history might decide the fate of the galaxy, is wrapped up in sci-fi. Really try to kind of keep it light and fun. That's just how, like, I don't want to call it all ages, but it's like it's a book for everybody. There's nothing super graphic or anything, just a fun sci-fi book. And when I created it too, a lot of my thought process was there wasn't a lot of female characters in the market then. You have Black Widow, but she's not what she is now. So I felt like there was this opportunity to do a female-centric book. So that's why I took a shot at it. And
2008, that's when the first Iron Man movie came out.
Yeah.
So she wasn't even introduced until Iron Man 2. So yeah, no, you're right. Black Widow was nothing then like she is now.
Yeah. So I felt like there was an opportunity there. I'll tell you this too. I know I've told the story in other places, but when the book came out, I was actually contacted by a producer from Hollywood who'd worked on the Hitman movies, and they were interested in developing it as a movie with Miley Cyrus. She was actually just coming off of Hannah Montana, and she was looking for like a sci-fi. but at the time though, you got context.
You couldn't have had a bigger name at the time.
Right.
You couldn't have. It would have done gangbusters just from her fans alone.
Yeah, it obviously didn't happen. It was fun to talk about it for a couple months, but that's how Hollywood is. You don't get wrapped up in it and just have fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what was your inspiration for that? Because it feels like it's a lot of the you reference Flash Gordon, but it kind of has this feel of the 1950s version of sci-fi, the take on sci-fi. It's got an optimistic sort of a feel to it. It's pretty clear who the good guys are and the bad guys are. It's not that it's simple. It's just that it's streamlined and it's new and fresh, but it's comfortable. There's something about it that it just struck me as having a kind of a retro future sort of a vibe to it. And I've always dug that.
You're striking all the right chords and everything. And I'm okay with you calling it simple, actually, because this is not rocket science. I'm just trying to tell a fun, solid, straightforward story. You know what I mean?
It's not rocket science. It's just rockets. I love it.
Yeah. It's simple. It's supposed to be fun. It's not supposed to be, it's not Shakespeare, it's not Neil Gaiman crafted, incredible craftiness. You know what I mean? It's just trying to tell a fun, solid story that people are just going to enjoy. And when they put it down, like, I like that story. That's what it is. I'm not trying to change the world. I'm trying to entertain people.
I'm going to
speaking of which, folks, here is the link to the Kickstarter, and he is right now this close to hitting the first stretch goal.
I'm actually going to share my screen because there's something on the Kickstarter page that I wanted to show that I thought was really cool. So here's the Kickstarter page and this trailer. Did you do the trailer or did someone else do it?
Hey, Kelly Yates here, the creator, writer, and illustrator of Amber Atoms. And I'm launching this campaign to collect the first 4 issues into a trade paperback for the very first time. In fact, I want to make this special for readers both new and old, so I created a brand new 7-page story that I wrote and illustrated exclusively for this collection. Also, there's a beautiful variant cover option by Eisner-nominated illustrator Olivier Vatine, and a pinup gallery with art by fan favorite creators. This is going to be an exciting project, and I can't wait for you to see it come together. So take a look at the tiers, and please reach out if you have any questions. Thank you for your time and support, and blast off with Amber Atoms.
He did a great job explaining it. There you go. You don't need me anymore.
That guy looks just like you.
So close. So close. That was Keanu, by the way. That was not.
That's awesome.
Okay, you got me with that one. We just kind of had like a little Doctor Who moment. I kind of made you watch yourself, kind of like in where he's doing the videotapes for the Weeping Angels.
Yeah, timey-wimey. Yeah,
it's a timey-wimey thing.
So yeah, go ahead.
So, but I don't know if it's not going to let me do it. I mean, for those of y'all that have not gone and checked out the Kickstarter, that have no idea what we're talking about or anything, y'all, some of this art is absolutely gorgeous on here. And
oh yeah,
you mentioning Flash Gordon and how she's like a female Flash Gordon. The first time I saw her, that's exactly what I thought with, just the colors and the way it looked and everything. But it's a throwback, because in the Sam Jones movie, he really didn't have a sword or anything. But if you go all the way back to the original Flash Gordon, he used a sword. It was more like a pirate, for lack of a better word.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so
framing stuff. Yeah,
those are the things that I liked about the art and what all you have going on in these pictures.
So much fun.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, and that's it. I mean, this is the older stuff and everything, and I just kind of want to, again, there's a whole generation of people who have never read it, so I just want to have it trade paperback, doing the Kickstarter and having it at shows and everything. But to circle back, I think you were asking about the video. Man, that's my brother-in-law. He really helped me. So
he did a great job. That's a fantastic video.
Yeah,
he did a great job. Absolutely, I have so much to thank him for with that. He actually works at a news station in Richmond, Virginia. And I was telling him, like, man, I'm talented enough where I could putz around and figure out something. Like, I could take Adobe Premiere and figure it out and everything, but it would take me 2 months, 3 months to do it and everything. So he said he would help me. And really, I storyboarded the whole thing out. I came up with the script of exactly what I want to say. I told him, like, I kind of want some funky space music, fun, whatever. I gave him all the assets, like, here's images, here's backgrounds, here's this. So I provided him with all the stuff. And again, I storyboarded all the word, like what I was going to say and everything. But he's the one that really nailed it. He's like, here's what I think you should do. Like he came up with the whole, like, again, the music, the structure of it, how to do it. And we just went to the news station and shot it on a Saturday. He did a fantastic job directing me. He's like, oh, start over. I'm like, oh. Just like, man.
Take 4.
He like, do you want to be wimpy, Kelly? Or do you want to be like strong, Kelly? I'm like, I don't want to be wimpy, I guess. Hey, Kelly Yates here. Mama comic book. So it's really, but
do you want to be Keanu, Kelly?
Yeah. But I got to tell you, man, he did. I've never used a teleprompter before. Thank goodness, because I couldn't have brought the same energy to that and remember my lines. There's just no way. But we literally we shot it and we went back into the editing bay that afternoon and just sat there and edited and it was done in a Saturday. So
what's happening, man?
What's up, Mark? There was
having access to a new film news studio is not a bad gig either. That's handy.
Well, I didn't realize. I know people say you need a video, but it really does for people who need that little bit of connection with you or who you are or what your story is. I mean, that video is just it's a perfect calling card. Here it is. Here's what I'm selling. Here's who I am. You need it if you're gonna do a Kickstarter. You really need a video.
Well, and his direction was spot on because you come across as very not like crazy high energy, but you come across as high energy, confident. You've got something engaging and fun, and the video top notch. Kudos to him. Well done.
Yeah, thank you, Ben.
And kudos to you for taking direction. A lot of people aren't very good at that. I've directed a lot of local theater, and you get people who are like, I just did that. Like, no. This time do it this way. I just did that. No, you didn't.
He prepared me. It's going to probably take you about 50 or 60 takes to get the right tone, right? I was like, all right, we nailed it in 8. We were good. So I was,
Maybe you missed your calling. Maybe you should be a stand-in for Keanu.
I'm up for that, right? Wouldn't that be kind of cool?
I imagine you get beat up a lot.
That's true too. So I didn't. So I had, because ever since I was 18, I've gotten that, hey, you look like Keanu. I've got even Point Break, Bill and Ted. I've gotten it for years. Although I will say, I think he looks more like me than I look like him. I'm just saying. So, but I'm sure
that's funny.
Who's older?
He's older than me. He's 5-6 years older than me, maybe.
Well, then you can't go that route. I was going to say I'm older, so therefore he looks like me. But
yeah. but I get it all the time, especially with the long hair now. Like when I was at Pensacon, I probably had 150 people tell me, "Do you know that you look like?" Yeah, I know. But so finally,
just tell them to pay you $15 or $20 for a photo op of you with your comic.
All right, here's my comic book. I don't want a comic book. I want
just hold it up next to Berserker.
That's true. That's true.
So I've been looking at your website, and I'm going to post it right now in the chat so everybody can see it. But I've been looking at the store on your website, and there's like 3 prints on here that I just don't think I'm going to be able to live without. And I plan on
show your screen, man.
Okay, well, we can do that too. So I'm really going to need you to bring these 3 prints to Con K, because I know that as an artist and everything. Oh crap, I'm hitting the wrong one. Hang on, stop it. As an artist and everything, you probably want me to buy it on the website, but I really like buying my stuff at cons. Like this one right here, I thought this was great. So yeah, that's number 1 I can't live without. And then these 2 right here with David Tennant.
Mm-hmm.
The 10th Doctor, yes, I will. You literally nailed him in this one with the expression on his face. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
But just don't get upset if I have you sign one of these as, Kelly Yates, aka Keanu.
I won't be upset. Yeah, the one with the doctors and the companions and everything was actually originally a T-shirt design for Titan. Wow. And they wanted it to be, the original direction was to be like, the Beatles cover where they're all looking down the foyer, like their heads are sticking out over and everything. That was like kind of the original way they wanted to go. I was like, guys, I don't think that's going to work just because and I have like Donna Noble falling in love with the 9th Doctor. I just thought it's fun because she's not that way at the 10th Doctor, but I thought the 9th Doctor, she would fall in love with him. But anyway, just because of who he is. Train of thought. But yeah, so they're just, I didn't think that'd work. So I was like, I think we need to kind of do like the inside the TARDIS, like so you can see all, because you're talking about like all the doctors, almost all the companions. I was like, I think we need to do it kind of like this, and it ended up working out really, really well this way. Because I don't think, because being able to use that scarf with Adric and everything, the scarf is always a great design tool.
One of the things that you talked about earlier, the photorealistic versus more straight up comic style. And I think that was a perfect example of bridging that gap of, exactly who it is. It doesn't look like a photograph. It's clearly comic book art, but you know exactly who that is. And it's a fantastic likeness of a real human person, or a Gallifreyan person, as the case may be. That's a hard thing to do, and that's one of the things I think why I tend to associate you with Doctor Who comics, is because you nail that. Well, and I love comic book style. I mean, you heard the first comics I ever read. That there's a comic book style, and a lot of that now is more serious looking art, right? And you lose a lot of the fun of the comic book style, but yours is a perfect bridge across those 2 things.
Well, it's kind of like, I don't know if you can pull up my site again and go to that store again, if that's possible. But one thing, if I've done a job, if somebody's flipping through my portfolio at a convention and they stop and laugh and do this, I've done my job. If I've made them giggle, if I've entertained them or anything, I've done my job. That's what it is. And that's the great thing about Doctor Who is the humor of it. Like, so if you go to that selfie, the one all the way over on the right with the 3 doctors. Yeah.
Come on. There we go.
People, I mean, it's just because it's the humor. Like there's the 10th Doctor, like, like selfie with the TARDIS phone. Like, people love that. It gets so many views all the time. There's the 12th Doctor's just bored out of his mind at these guys, these idiots.
Blow that back up, Helen, because focus on Matt Smith. You said that earlier, and I never really made the connection in my head about the big line across his forehead. But you're absolutely right, because I'm envisioning that face without it, and it doesn't work. You put that wrinkle across his forehead, and that's it. Poof, it works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And also, I'm looking at the eyebrows, just like you said earlier. Yep.
Yeah. so I mean, a lot of people love that. And there's also the one with the on the sound of it's, I'm sure it's up there, but it's the Hastings one. If you scroll down just a little bit, well, the dog. See the dog one's right there. The Doctor Who. People love that. I mean, there's like, you know, they stop and stare and they giggle and they laugh, and it's like, Doctor Who is dogs? What? You know, and there's always a fun story somebody can relate to it. Like, oh, the 10th Doctor's a border collie. Oh my gosh, that's exactly what I would have chosen. You know, it's just kind of a fun thing. Now, I will say the Matt Smith. See, right here. See, this is the perfect example. This is it. This is it. Job done. I'm out.
Well, that's our show for tonight, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh my Lord, that's fantastic.
That is great.
See, that's the point. If you could tell a story, and entertain people, right?
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
How'd you come up with this idea, by the way?
Well, this is actually another T-shirt design. So I can't remember the girl's name right now. It might be Jenny Fry.
No, just saying someone walking around.
Yeah, where did they sell this T-shirt at? Because I think I need the T-shirt.
I don't remember. It might have been Hot Topic. I can't remember. But the Chihuahuas, the second Doctor, and everything, but
That's fantastic.
Okay,
but I will say this though, that they let me choose the breeds for everything. They told me the concept that they wanted. I chose the breed. However, the BBC said that the 11th Doctor had to be a pug. Oh, that's what that came down from the BBC. Why, I have no idea.
They clearly had ideas on that. That's hysterical.
Right?
Pupper Who.
Yeah, that is great. I like that.
Yeah.
Who's a good boy?
That's it. I've entertained. I've made you laugh. I've done my job. And that's the thing. So.
Fantastic.
So, when you're going to be at Con K in June.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I know that Con K is going to be all about Doctor Who, and I'm sure that I am going to trap you in a corner and we're going to talk some more Doctor Who at some point.
Okay.
But will you have any of your Amber Adams stuff with you? Do you bring that to Doctor Who conventions?
So I don't know if I'll have it in time. Honestly, I don't know if they'll be back from the printer yet. That's the trick. So I don't know. I'll be honest.
Well, and just so you know, Alan, Con K started as a Doctor Who focused convention, and it's still mostly Doctor Who, but it has expanded beyond just Doctor Who.
Yeah, but it's still a Doctor Who show, so we can.
Oh, it absolutely is.
Yeah, I would hope, but I just don't know timing. I know when things are supposed to get to me and everything, but I just don't know yet. You know.
Which printer are you working with? Have you already determined that?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I really want to print in the U.S. I really, really did. I want to support U.S. businesses and everything. And we had the paper shortage. I got some quotes, and then the paper shortage hit, and the prices skyrocketed. And then we started like, well, if I do variant cover and everything, and they won't start charging me like $1,000 for a plate change, which is crazy numbers. Like usually it's done for free or maybe $200 or whatever. But I've just have not had a very good run in the sense of like getting estimates from U.S. printers at this point. So I've been working with U.S. people who contract. So I think I'm going to be printing in Korea right now through ONS Printing. They've been really responsive. They've been really great. They provided me with samples. They've been responsive for quotes. And the one drawback to printing overseas, it was significantly cheaper too. I mean, it just it's cheaper. Is that there will be like about a 2-month wait for the books to come over on the boat. So that's the drawback. But you know, when you're already running a thin line anyway, you're printing the books, you're shipping them, everything. You know, every dollar counts.
Oh, it absolutely does, and there's funding a project, making it work, and being able to leverage that funding to make other successful projects is a very fine art, and it's a challenge.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I've already run the numbers. Like, oh, well, I can spend a little bit here, but I'm gonna, just like running a shop, right? I mean, you gotta balance the budget at the end of the day.
And Guys, he is just shy, it looks like, of $200 from hitting the first stretch goal. And I think that with this group, we can probably get him over that. So head over, take a look at the Kickstarter, back the book. It's a great book. You're not going to be disappointed. It's fun. Um, and see what you can do to help a great creator out who is putting something out there that makes the world a better place. It's a lot of fun. You should try it. You should back it. We're going to be backing at the retailer level. So if you don't manage to back it and you want to get copies, we'll have some at the store. But don't rely on us. Save that for other people. Get your butt over there and back this Kickstarter.
Well, thank you for that
sermon for today.
I mean, well, just since we've been on, I think it's gone up one. Somebody's put a pledge in. It looks like so. Thank you very much.
There will be more.
It really is. Again, being this is my first Kickstarter, it really is interesting to see the patterns of bumps. You know what I mean? You do a podcast or you do an interview or you put an email out where you'll see these bumps like, oh my gosh, okay. And trying to figure out what works and what doesn't work. And, it's pretty interesting. It's like being a businessman.
So,
yeah, okay. But you actually have access to the data so you can see what's happening. That helps.
It does. That didn't work. Whoops.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about Doctor Who, and I have loved the entire Doctor Who conversation. I forgot how much I missed talking about Doctor Who until I got to talk to you tonight. We've covered Amber Adams. Can you and I know we're coming up on an hour and a half, and we try to be respectful of the guest time and everything, but can you give us a brief synopsis of Monster?
Ooh, well, let's see. Monster.
Hey, I'm digging for the dirt now. I need some exclusives.
Basically, Monster, it follows this girl. She lives in a halfway house for monsters. It's people who were turned into monsters by this evil entity. And they try to save these people and help them become human again. So it's kind of this, and they live in a drive-in movie theater. So their house is a drive-in movie theater. On one side, they show movies, and the other side, they have their house. Because that's actually a place, there was a place like that in North Carolina one time. So just an interesting backdrop. So that's kind of the general idea behind it and everything. So kind of southern town, long entity that converts people to monsters and they're trying to save them.
How dark is that? Because I can see that going pretty dark, and I can see that also having some comedic elements.
It's not crazy dark. Like so ultimately the story is about forgiveness. That's the framework of that. That's kind of the thing that might help beat the monster at the end of the book and everything is forgiveness. Because just, we see all the frustration, hate, anger out in the world and everything. And I'm not saying forgive Hitler. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying like it's the small things. Like why get upset that somebody's parked behind you in a parking lot? Why pull a gun out and shoot them? It's not dark like that. But I'm just saying like why go to that extreme? Forgiveness. Or letting things go. You don't have to get upset about every single thing. And it's not heavy-handed. It's still a fun story. And there is humor in it. But the framework is just kind of like forgiveness,
I totally have got a Bryan Adams song stuck in my head now. So thanks for that.
Yeah. I'm here to bring up your 80s vibes, your 80s, bring back all your 80s fun hits and everything. So.
Yeah, Lily's going, who is Bryan Adams?
Well, actually, we have tickets. Her mother and I are taking her to Bryan Adams and Joan Jett in Nashville this summer.
No way. Are you serious?
Yep. But see, that's also kind of payback because I'm having to take her to like this One Direction guy dude concert crap that I don't want to go to. But I'm also, rumor has it, Megadeth might be playing Orion Amphitheater in Huntsville this summer. And if Megadeth is going to be at Orion, somebody is getting their true indoctrination into the cult, and I cannot wait.
There you go. I love it. I went to go see Iron Maiden a couple months ago and everything, so they came back around. So
I would love to see Iron Maiden, but I mean they're just not going to. I have no desire to drive to Atlanta.
Yeah.
To me, a good trip to Atlanta is driving through it to go to Disney. So other than that, they're not going to come anywhere close to where I could actually go.
Yeah. I was very thankful they came back through. So I really enjoyed it. So, oh yeah. I guess random story. I got to tell y'all, random story.
Love
Okay.
it. Love it. Let's do it.
Non-comic books. So I was like, when I was high school, I had front row to Iron Maiden. You know, I loved it and everything. Adult, you know, I'm up in the box seats, you know, or the boxes. I'm like, I'm not getting down the pit. You know, so time has changed.
You can get hurt down there.
You can. But so I was also really into Ozzy Osbourne too. And I had front row to his concert. Just, it was general admission. You know, you used to, you know, weave your way down the front. I was just at the front. Somebody reminded me this other week. I'd somehow forgot it or blocked it out or whatever. And he started talking about, yeah, you remember what you did at the Ozzy concert? I'm like, I did the Ozzy concert. You don't remember? I was like, refresh me. He goes, you took your shirt off and threw it. Like I had the original Sin shirt. And he's like, you took it off and threw it up to Ozzy. And he put it on and wore it for like 3 or 4 songs. Then he found you in the crowd and gave it back to you. You don't remember that? I was like, oh yeah, I remember that now. So,
wow.
Ozzy Osbourne wore my shirt for like 3 or 4 songs and was singing. I was like, okay. Just random.
That's a heck of a story. That's pretty cool.
That was just weird. It was just weird, like what? But go buy Amber Adams. It's clean, wholesome, it's fun.
Well, this one right
What
here.
a segue.
He does read comic books, so we will end up with a copy of Amber Adams. Yeah, this one's got her own comic book collection too. In fact, I told her she's going to have to be a guest on the show one night so she can discuss Scarlet Witch with you.
So do you have a favorite book right now?
Not really.
Not really? No.
That is such a lie. That is such a lie.
Wait a minute. Who was it the other day that was like, have we got the new issue of Fantastic Four yet? Why hasn't it come in yet, Daddy? So don't look at her. She's like,
and what does she do when you walk in the house with a copy of Scarlet Witch #1? What did she do? Thank you. She takes it out of your hand and walks back to her room so she can read it.
Yep, went straight to her room with it. I mean, I did not get a hi bye, kiss my A, nothing. Snatched it out of my hands and sprinted to her bedroom.
I did not sprint.
You walked briskly. How about we agree on that?
So I'm feeling very hopeful about the future generations, what you're telling me. I think this is fantastic.
So I have literally, I've got pictures of her when she was younger. And I want to say it was right around Halloween. And she is dressed in like unicorn pajamas, sitting in the floor at Haven Comics, digging through back boxes.
She's always been good at digging through the back issue bins. You raised her right.
Oh yeah, no, she will. You can't really see.
Hang on,
it.
I'm going to have to blow you up there. Hang on.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the blow that up some. This right here was the last trip to Haven, and she, you know, you really
looking
can't
at the Scarlet Witch graphic short box. Yep.
Yeah, the graphic short box.
Oh yeah.
My Slim Shady sticker off of Yana.
But I did keep taking pictures of her at the shop. Not only is the future of comics,
Instagram.
Not only is the future of comics safe, but my little 12-year-old hippie here is out in public wearing a hoodie and stitched pajama pants. Nobody noticed and she didn't care. And we were at the comic book store and just having fun. So the future of comics is definitely in good hands.
Very cool. Because when I was your age, it was not cool to talk about comic books. It was not cool. Like when I got to 12 years old and I was still buying a Transformer toy and none of my other friends were buying Transformers toys, it wasn't cool.
Please, I'm 49 and I'm still buying G.I. Joe toys.
Yeah, I just had this one come in this week, and I gotta say, I'm gonna embiggen myself here because this is something, y'all. Look at this.
Yeah.
Look at this.
Yeah, you texted me a picture of that earlier, and I know that I sent back the word nice, but what I really meant to send back was I hate you so much right now.
Wow. Is that a new toy? Is that a new one that just came out?
Yeah, this is the new version of Serpentor.
Yeah.
Yeah, just came out, and this is fantastic. What a sculpt. everything about this is excellent. This makes me very, very happy.
Very cool.
I wasn't sure that it would because I'm like, how well can they do Serpentor? He was kind of an oddball figure.
Right.
But my friend Damon was like, no, dude, you got to get it. So I did, and then I've waited and waited and waited. I got notification that it was on its way, and I'm like, all right, I got it. The box is one of the most complicated contraptions I've ever seen in my life. Just the box.
Yeah.
It opens in the middle. Well, first of all, it's got like a little the box is in another box a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But you take it out, and then it opens in the middle, and it's each one of the two flaps that opens has got a few pieces in it that you can pop out of the little plastic shells. But those open at the top, and then there's the bit where the figure is, which opens at the top, and you have to get him out. And then beside the figure, but behind one of the flaps, is you have to open the box there so that you can get out the vehicle.
I'm
And it's
having
in
a panic
several
attack, and
pieces.
you just trying to explain how difficult it was for this to get out of the box.
I'm just saying, putting that all together was a labor of love.
But you're happy with it, right? It's a pretty cool thing. I mean,
Dude, I'm so happy. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Are we sharing toys?
Oh, yeah.
Share
You got
away,
toys.
share
Share 'em.
away.
You got something you want to show off. Let's do it.
It's my latest toy. All right. The Sideshow Deluxe Mandalorian.
Oh, man. Look at that.
I don't buy much for myself anymore, but I saw this and I was like, I got to get that one. The detail is incredible.
Those Sideshow statues are always phenomenal.
Yeah, I limit myself usually to stormtroopers, but I saw this when I was like, all right. It's just the detail is phenomenal. And it's got interchangeable heads and like 20 different hands you can switch out to. And I was like, I got to do that disintegration gun though. But that's my.
So I have to ask, have you been to Disney World? Have you been to Star Wars Galaxy's Edge at Hollywood Studios?
I have. Yes.
Have
you been?
Yeah.
Amazing, right?
It's like being in this world. They've captured it. So just the sound, like you hear the ships flying over, and you hear that something taking off over here and all this kind of thing. Just the ambient sound is a story unto itself. But then you get into this whole business of actually being in the world, and Star Wars Rise of the Resistance. What an attraction that is.
Wow.
They pull off some incredible stuff. Just absolutely loved it. It felt like being in the movie.
If you didn't have the tourists, it would feel like you were truly on another planet.
Yeah.
But even some of the tourists really helped elevate it like you were on another planet. So.
Well, I love that all the cast members get to pick whatever they're going to wear. They get to assemble their own ensemble from whatever pieces they want, so they can coordinate and customize it however they want. But then that they have their own characters. They're not a cast member who works there. They are a person on that planet in that world. And I love that.
It is, you're exactly, and just, the Coke stands, they look like speeders, and just, actually, what
about the water fountain that has that critter in it from, what are they called? Heck yes.
I've got 3 of them at home.
Yeah, I had it right here.
Yeah.
It's really close to me if I needed it. So
we literally have the Coke one, the Diet Coke one, and the Sprite one sitting on the stereo at home.
Well, you got to have your thermite grenade. That's just a necessity.
So have you watched the first episode of season 3 yet?
That's tonight.
No. Yeah.
That's tonight. I haven't watched it yet either.
Oh, I watched it last night.
I just know I have to watch it before Saturday because somebody at the store is going to ruin it for me if I don't.
Honestly, it's not a very long episode, and it goes so fast. I mean, it's a really good episode. It's what you're wanting it to be. I'll tell you all that.
Cool.
And spoiler alert, Obi-Wan dies. So,
What?
Yeah. Once again.
Man. So, question for you, Kelly. When you were at Galaxy's Edge, did you see the water fountain with the, what do they call the Dianaga, whatever they are, the critters from the trash compactor.
Trash factor. Yeah.
In the water fountain, it's got like the water level here, but that and that eye.
Yeah.
Oh, that was just such a brilliant touch.
So you're exactly right. Just the amount of detail. So I did the Harry Potter world at Universal last year and everything, and it was phenomenal. It was great. I enjoyed it. I would definitely go back there again. I really had fun, but it was just missing that dialed up thing that Disney had. I mean, you could just if Disney had that, I think it'd been tweaked up, but you can just feel it still is. You feel like you're in Harry Potter world, Hogsmeade and everything. But it's something about Disney. They just have that little bit more artistry, just that little, whatever it is, that little bit, just the mountains in the background. They're painted that light blue. So they're like they're in the distance. Although they might only be 1,000 feet away from you, they look like they're 500,000 feet away from you just because the color schemes, the color palettes they chose. I mean, it's just that artistry. I mean, taken to the nth degree. It's amazing.
The food was good. The bathrooms were cool.
Yeah. The blue milk.
Went into the bathrooms. Oh, I didn't drink the blue milk.
Oh.
I avoided that. But at one point, some of the the First Order officers are walking around through there, and they're questioning people in the crowd about, did you steal this data? Did you steal these files and all this? And they take the guy's phone. He's like, "What are you doing with this data pad?" And the guy's like, he's like, "Are you surveilling me? Why do you have a picture of me? What are you doing?" It was fantastic because just the interaction with the people.
Yeah. That's great.
That was so much fun. And then Kylo Ren comes walking through, and he says, "Where are the ones that you said stole the plans?" And he's like, "These guys right here." And he does like, and the thing was, when he did this, they did this sound effect, and you kind of felt this whoop, whoop, whoop. Like when you're being interrogated in the attraction, right? Where he does that and you feel it. You don't just hear it, but this whoop, whoop. And he's like, "They know nothing. You lied to me." And he's like, I'm so
I didn't see that. That's cool. Oh, man. Yeah.
It's just these ad hoc things that they do where they wander into the crowd and interact with people. So cool.
It really is.
When we win the lottery, do you want to go to the Galaxy's Edge, the Galactic Star Cruiser with us and do that? I think that's the only way we're going to do it is when we win the lottery.
Woo! Wouldn't that be cool?
Rumor has it they're talking about dropping the price and everything because it's not going as well as what they hoped it would with sellouts and stuff.
Yeah, they've had to cancel several voyages because they didn't have enough people to fill it. But
it's $5,000 or something, right?
It's almost $6,000 for 4 people.
Yeah, and my thing is, if I'm going to spend that type of money to go to Disney, nobody's going to tell me that I can't walk outside of the hotel. I'm going to explore, and I'm doing whatever I want to do.
Well, you explore inside the hotel, and from what I understand, that's one of the fun things to do on that particular thing, because you'll run into people who are like, "Hey, can you help me do something?" And you're like, "Is that a good guy? Is that a bad guy? I don't know if this is a mercenary." And that what you do, and then how you do on things like Smuggler's Run, if you're piloting the Millennium Falcon and you bring it back all beat up, they'll put out a bounty on you. And they'll come after you, and they'll be flashing your picture up in Oga's Cantina and stuff like that. Like, have you seen this person? If you've seen this person, let us know. Stuff like that. So there's a lot of interactive, cool stuff. I just think it'd be a lot of fun to play in that world.
There is, and I would like to do it, but y'all can ask this one. That literally the first day at Disney, if I don't get a Rice Krispie treat and get to ride Spaceship Earth, I start getting a little antsy.
That's fair.
I start getting a little irritable. I love Spaceship Earth. I just want to go. I will ride Spaceship Earth all day long if they would just leave me alone and just let me sit in it. I'll just go up and down, and I wouldn't care.
I would if it were more comfortable on my knees. I would do that. But there's not quite enough leg room in there for me, so it's hard on the knees. Common problem that I have.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a question before we wind things up here, Kelly. When can we get you hooked up with Neil Gaiman to do that Good Omens book? Because I think that's just the match made in heaven right there.
I would say tomorrow, but let's get through the Kickstarter campaign first, and then we'll reach out to Neil and get it all lined up. So
that sounds perfect. I think that's what we should do. That's what we should do. God, what a fun book that would be.
Yeah,
I've been surprised that there's not a comic book adaptation of it, but there never has been, and it feels like there should be because it's so good.
You feel like it would be absolutely and everything. So I think they're filming the second one already, or close to being done with that. That's what I heard recently.
I trust Neil Gaiman. I just don't know where he's going to go for a second season because the first one, it was the entire book.
Yeah,
and so it's all done, and I'm not sure where you go from that ending. You know what I mean?
Oh, no, yeah, that's a good point. I mean, it's got to
was just the end of the world. So where do you go from here?
I don't know. Time machine, right?
It could be that. Now they could tell stories set in the past because those were always fun. The little flashbacks to the various time periods, those were a hoot.
Did y'all watch 80 Days Around the World with David Tennant, the series just recently within the past year?
No.
It was really
I didn't even
good.
know he did that. That's awesome.
Yeah, 80 Days Around the World, and they're doing a second season of it, but it was on PBS back during the fall, maybe summer. And it was I really liked it. I really enjoyed it, but I was like, well, why do I like it so much? I was trying to kind of figure that out. And it was almost like Doctor Who, because it's like he goes different places. It's not just him, but his traveling companions, and they fix things along the way. I was like, it's like Doctor Who.
That does sound a bit. He has a sonic screwdriver. He just calls it something else, right?
Right. Yeah, I don't know, but I don't know. But they did a great job with it. It was fun to watch.
Well, that is awesome. Before we wrap up, Alan, do you want to show off your comics for the week real quick?
Yes.
You can see what Alan's reading this week. This is something that we always do.
Okay.
Before I do that, I do have a standard question that I do have to ask.
Yes.
Kelly, you work in the comic book industry. Not only do you work on Doctor Who, you've been a massive fan for years. You understand character development. So whenever we have a creator on the show, I have a standard question that I have to ask every single creator, and it is the exact same question.
Okay.
Very simple. Is Miss Piggy a femme fatale?
Yes.
Very good. That's all I need to know. Tom Price, that is me 3 and you 1. I don't care if it is Jim Lee or Todd McFarlane or what. Everyone gets asked that question.
All right.
So right off the bat, once again, last week, I had to pick it up. Y'all know I do love my independent comics. If you'll check out the latest short, I do read the first page of the latest short in a all serious tone. I was very proud of myself. But Hammerfall, issue number 2, Hector the Paladin. I mean, it's fun stuff. It's a simple story. It's good versus evil. And I was not joking. For people that watch the show and watch it on a consistent basis, Josh is going to know. He'll be able to get this reference even though he's never read the comic book. The end of this issue, Josh, let's just say it was a bold strategy.
That's a bold strategy, Cotton.
Yeah, it's a bold strategy.
I would like to say props to me for filming that short.
She did film the short.
I did amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Well done. Well done.
We're going to hold that one off for a second. Nightwing number 101. We pick up a story that was left off in issue 98. We're kind of getting a little more of that story. It was nice that they're revisiting it. But with Nightwing 101, this is one of those rare comics where the second story, the secondary story in the back, is actually better than the main story. Both of them are written by Tom Taylor. Y'all know I love Tom Taylor. He is a great writer. It's a good read. It's a fun read, but the second story is definitely the best part of it. We're going to cruise through these tonight. Deceased War of the Undead Gods, number 6. Oh my God. the end of this issue, what they do with very possibly one of the most beloved characters and what happens with him at the end of this comic. Oh, sweet baby Jesus. Tom Taylor, you have done it again. I mean, if I ever meet Tom Taylor, this will be the book that he signs just because of what he does at the end of this book. Great. If you're not reading Deceased War of the Undead Gods, you're missing out. The entire Deceased line has been really good so far.
It is surprisingly good. It was a concept I thought didn't have legs, but it has proven to be very strong.
Yep, and it's been really. Have you read issue number 6?
Not yet.
Oh, then you're going to love the end of it.
You've got me all excited to now. I'm like,
I was when you realize who's actually narrating the story, it's really good. But when you get to that final moment and you realize what's happening, you are just like, oh, hell yes, do it. I mean, this book gives you a hell yeah moment in it.
Oh, that's all you can ask from a comic.
Yeah, I mean, it was great. You know, and I'm always going to be a child at heart, but when there's trouble, who do you call?
Darkwing Duck.
Darkwing Duck, issue number 2. Anybody that wants the nostalgic feel, these feel like you're literally reading the cartoon. Dynamite Comics has done a really good job with these. They've been fun. I do like the way they've kind of modernized them a little bit, talking about cell phones and things. But they've really been fun. We get another classic DW villain. I'm not going to spoil it, but you can probably tell by the cover who it's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Darkwing Duck issue number 2. Great read, fun. It's childish. It's stupid. You're not emotionally invested. You can literally just zone out for a few minutes and enjoy something from your childhood.
It's nostalgically delicious.
Exactly. So Superman number 1, The Dawn of DC. Number 1, I enjoyed the book. I thought it was really good. It felt like I was reading Superman the Animated Series. That's literally what this book feels like. I thought they did a really good job with that. Even the art style was kind of along the same lines. You kind of get that vibe. There's some really good moments in this book. What y'all can't see, because I got it bag and boarded, this is actually a wraparound cover. And one thing that I really enjoyed about this cover is every single person that's on the cover, front and back, has something to do with the story that's in this book.
Most covers don't do that these days, or nothing like that. So that is refreshing.
Literally every single person. There's a nice little twist in it. There are some things going on. It's definitely a meaty story. There's enough there that makes me want to continue to see which direction that they are going with this. So yeah, Dawn of DC, Superman number 1, Josh Williamson. I mean, good stuff. I mean, you can't go wrong with this book. This is one of those that I'm glad I purchased it.
Historically, we haven't had many subs on Superman. It's been a lackluster book for decades. And this book coming out, we've more than quadrupled our subs on that book.
Wow.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, it's a fun read. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say Superman's back. I'm not going that far yet, but with what they're doing with Action Comics and now Superman number 1, I think they're well on their way.
Does it feel to you kind of like what we've been talking about with the Fantastic Four, Scarlet Witch, Wasp, some of the things that Marvel is doing, that they're kind of going back to they're resetting to a timeline in comics where comics were fun.
Yes.
And comics weren't just all dark and gritty and 6-issue stories of heart-pounding tension and pressure, that they're setting back to a time when comics were simpler and better.
Yeah, and it's not, you do not get the feel of and we've talked about it before, the whole, what's the crisis of the month? You know, what's the galaxy ending doom of the summer? It doesn't feel that way. This literally felt like a fun book.
That's Marvel has been doing that with some of their characters. Miles Morales, Spider-Man, the new Wasp book, the new Scarlet Witch book, the Fantastic Four, have all been kind of resetting back to a type of comic that you would get in the late 70s.
Yep.
And it's beautiful. They're so good.
I like that the stories are starting to become more character driven. Yep. And you definitely see more character in this book. We see a little more Lois and Clark. We see him he's got to go to the top, to the roof of the Daily Planet to kind of get away from the noise. At one point, he's actually wearing noise canceling headphones. And he tells Lois, it doesn't always help, but it helps some. So, we're getting a little more character driven. My final is my throwback pick of the week. And I went with this for a couple of reasons. We have Amazing Spider-Man number 70. So the reasons why I wanted to go with this one is not because it's Amazing Spider-Man, not because it's below 100 or anything, not because of the little, get the other side, the little Comics Code Authority sticker or anything. The camera's not going to pick it up, but one of the things way back in the day in this era, the level of detail that's in the shadows of the bricks and, up in the over in here, we've even got like little spider webs up here in the bricks. The level of detail on this cover is why this is my throwback pick of the week.
Excellent choice.
It's just the subtle things. It's, and yeah, it was definitely a different era for comic books and everything. But I don't know. I've always loved Silver Age. I've always loved 70s style art. For everybody that knows me, I will flip out over some 70s style horror art, especially something like The Living Mummy, just because of what they were doing back then. But then again, here we go. There it is, 12-cent. I'm going to hammer y'all on this all day long. Owning 12-cent comic books is fun. It's just, you see it in your collection and you're like, it's a 12-cent comic book. It's a 15-cent comic book. It's a 10-cent comic book. It's a piece of history. These will make you happy in your collection. Go spend 40, 50, 60, 100 bucks. Go find the cover that you like. Go find you a 12-cent comic and buy it. And that's my throwback pick of the week.
You know what? And the thing that's great about that cover is, think about that when it was actually on the newsstand. Mm-hmm. That really popped. That way the colors, like all the police and the background, was, you see the detail, but it's still a tonal piece. And that blue, that red, and that yellow, bam, that pops on the shelf.
Yep.
A couple of quick ones from this week. We normally run our comic reviews about a week behind so that we don't spoil them for anybody. A couple of books that have hit the shelf this week, we got issue number 2 of Breath of Shadows, a Birch book, and I gotta say that's one of the coolest looking covers I've seen in a while. That cover right there makes you want to read that story, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. But Justin Birch is the letterer on this. If you don't know Justin, he's from West Virginia. Super cool dude, amazing letterer. You should get to know Justin. Fantastic guy. But we support our creators, and this is a fun. I say fun book is not accurate. This is a scary book.
Yeah.
This not a fun book. It's a great read. It's a tense book. It's a scary book. That's cool. This is one Alan and I have been talking about for a long time, from AWA, Red Zone. Number 1 just came out. This is the Mike Deodato alternate cover here, because we're already sold out of the regular cover. And I think this is the last one of this book at all that we have, so I have to put it back on the shelf. So you're going to want to read this one. This is one Alan and I have been looking forward to for a long time. And guys, last one I want to show off. We talked about this before when it was first solicited, and Mark Spears got in touch with us. But the guy that did this cover is Mark Spears. He's a local Huntsville guy. He did the cover for King Spawn number 20.
Ooh.
And the thing that he did that was particularly cool for anybody who doesn't know is he's got a tribute on this cover to our friend that used to work up at Haven, Alex Humphrey, who we lost God, a year and a half ago now. It's just about as hard to believe. But in the bits of skin that are chunking off on his neck over here, you can't see it unless you get really close up, are the initials AH. And that's not Adam Hughes. That's for Alex Humphrey. It's a loving tribute that he put. Alex used to draw monsters up at the store all day long, every day. And so for Mark to do this and make that tribute to Alex was particularly cool. We have a few of these left on the shelf, but not a lot because people have been snatching them up. So if you want to get this, support a local Huntsville artist, support a guy who put a tribute to Alex in this comic book. That's just awesome. So you should do that. Last thing is don't forget, go and pick up, jump on that Kickstarter for Amber Adams. You want to we talked about supporting cool artists and folks that we love. Kelly Yates has been doing this for a while. He's been doing it the right way. He does it because he loves it. And sometimes somebody can love something and still not be very good at it. He is not that guy. He's very, very talented, an amazing artist, a heck of a human being. That's the kind of guy we want to support. So get over that Kickstarter and back Amber Adams. You won't regret it.
Yes. Thank you for the plug. And can I contribute to the weekly?
Oh, dude, absolutely.
When y'all said that, I was like, yeah, I don't know if you have any of these copies still in your store, but I was like, well, let me contribute to that a little bit.
Heck yeah, jump on.
Do this.
I really enjoyed this last issue of Batman Beyond the White Knight. I thought Sean Gordon Murphy always does.
He has been doing amazing work, hasn't he?
Just amazing. I mean, just really like doing his own thing, and I'm loving like every minute of it. So he created a whole separate corner in the Batman sandbox. Yeah, the whole Jack Napier. It's been fantastic. I really like this. These were just ones I grabbed off the top of my stack. And then this one just came out through Boom last week. The Harrower.
I have not got to read Harrower yet. Have you read it yet? Is it good?
Very interesting. I could easily see this being a TV show or a movie or something like that. Really interesting. I want to see where they take this. I enjoyed it. I did enjoy it. So, and then just completely random Hulk book. Ryan Otley. I don't know where they're going with this and what they're doing, but it's just weirdly bizarre storyline.
Yeah, Donnie Cates started book, and then he had to drop for whatever reason, and Ryan Otley just kind of took over, and it was weird before he took over, but it's gotten weirder since, and I'm like, I don't know where it's going either, but it is interesting.
I know it's really weird, but it's like, where are they going with this? So I just grabbed those three, and that's all I had to say. So I just want to contribute because y'all are having so much fun, so I want to be part of it. So
you can contribute anytime you want to.
Absolutely, anytime you want to come on. We love talking comics. We love talking Star Wars. We love talking Doctor Who, G.I. Joe. This is what we do. I know it's a lot of shows that are about comics don't actually talk about the comics, which is weird to me. I don't get that. That's what we really love. We like talking to creators. We like talking to folks who make the comics. We like to hear how the sausage gets made, how the magic happens. How they got into it, because it's a very human story. It's all the same things that we got into it. And if we had the skills, we would try to do what you do. Lord knows I can't draw, so I can't do that.
But everybody has a story. So, thank you for having me on. Thank you for, let me contribute to your show and for promoting me. I really appreciate it from sincerely. It really means a lot to me. So thank you very much.
Well, anytime you ever want to come on, we're friends on Facebook. Just hit me up and say, hey, you want to talk about comics? We can talk about whatever you want. We're always game. We love it. I will say, I'd like to go ahead and make an announcement. Next week, we've got a guest coming on. We don't always have a guest come on, but we do when we can. We have a guest coming on next week, which do I still have that book here? Let me see. Because we had talked about it.
2 weeks.
We have a guest the next 2 weeks. That's true. But I was going to see if I had that same book that I was showing off last week here we go. This was a hint. I'll embiggen myself here. This was a hint about our guest last week. But we have the writer of Power Rangers of Radiant Black, Radiant Pink, Supermassive, and the upcoming book No One, which looks really cool. Kyle Higgins is going to be on next week. And in 2 weeks, y'all strap in because Mr. Mark London, the publisher at Mad Cave Studios, is going to be coming on. Have you done any work for Mad Cave yet, Kelly?
I haven't. I think Mark Irwin is now with them, I believe. If that's who Mark Irwin used to work with, like Topps Trading Company. I think he's working with them now. So you never know.
They are doing some really interesting stuff. They're not bound by this is the genre we do. This is none of that stuff. They do whatever strikes them as a good story. And mostly they kind of work in series of limited series kind of things. And if you haven't read Nottingham, you need to read Nottingham.
I will put it on my list.
It's 6 issues. Was it 6 issues, the first one?
Yeah, 6 issues. Then they took like 2 months off.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and then they came back, and then there's also a spinoff right now called Tales of Nottingham. It takes the whole Robin Hood story, and it is a violent, wackadoo thing that's going on in that book. But boy, it's kind of, tell me if you agree with this, Alan, kind of like Robin Hood meets Reservoir Dogs a little bit.
Kinda, and it's more of a detective story on the sheriff's part.
Yeah.
It really focuses on the sheriff of Nottingham himself, and he's actually a former Templar that fought in the Crusades. He's got like a very detailed. They put a ton of thought into this story. They really did, and I mean it's definitely been a fun read and definitely worth picking up.
But yeah, we're big fans of comics and. All the stuff that I mean, you are too, clearly, and it's fantastic to get to talk comics with somebody else. So anytime you want to come on, just hit me up, man. We'll bring you on. We'll talk comics.
All right, sounds like a plan. Thank you.
Well, appreciate it, brother. And if nothing else, we look forward to seeing you at Conquistabris in June. Guys, back the Kickstarter for Amber Adams. Bring your book to Con-K in June. Get Kelly to sign it. Do a remark on there, whatever. It'll be awesome. You're not going to regret it. But thank you very much for coming on and joining us. We really appreciate it. It's always fun to talk to people who do what we wish we could do. And hats off to you for doing it so well and sticking with it. I know it's a tough thing to do. You said owning a shop is tough, and it is, but being a creator is tough too.
Well, let's tell our stories, right? What's
Absolutely.
our story? Let's tell them.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Everybody, y'all have a great night, and don't forget to go out and back that Kickstarter because it's going to be awesome. So we will catch you guys next time.